If you've ever noticed that you can miss someone, even after you've healed from what they put you through, this might feel confusing because on the surface, it doesn't make sense. You're not wishing they'd come back. You're not romanticizing what happened. You're not undoing your growth. And yet, there are moments when their absence feels strangely loud. People who experience this often assume it means something unresolved, or worse, that healing didn't really work. But that's not what's happening. What you're feeling isn't a desire to return to the person. It's your nervous system noticing the absence of a familiar emotional rhythm. And those are very different things. Here's what this usually looks like in real life. It shows up late at night when things are quiet, when you're not distracted or performing for anyone. You might think about how conversations used to flow, or how intense certain moments felt, or how even the hard parts had a kind of structure to them, not because they were healthy, but because they were predictable. And predictability is something the nervous system pays attention to, even when the experience itself was painful. Especially when it was painful but familiar. From the outside, missing someone after healing can look like emotional weakness, but internally, it's usually a sign of how deeply your system learned a pattern. Human attachment doesn't just live in memory, it lives in the body. Your nervous system doesn't track people the way your mind does, it tracks states. Levels of tension, moments of relief, the rise and fall of emotional intensity. If a relationship trained your body to operate at a certain frequency, high alert, deep connection, sudden withdrawal, reconciliation, that rhythm becomes known territory. So when it disappears, even if it disappears for good reason, the system notices the silence. Not because it wants the chaos back, but because the rhythm is gone. This is why missing someone often has nothing to do with missing who they are now. You're not longing for their personality or their behavior or the way they hurt you. You're missing the internal version of yourself that existed inside that dynamic. The version of you who knew how to respond, who knew the rules, who knew what to expect next, even if what came next wasn't good. That familiarity creates a sense of orientation, and when it's gone, there's a temporary feeling of disorientation. Not heartbreak, not desire, just absence. People who experience this tend to be highly adaptive. They learned early how to adjust emotionally to the environment around them. They became skilled at reading shifts in tone, at anticipating reactions, at staying connected even when connection felt unstable. So when they heal and step out of that pattern, something interesting happens. Life becomes calmer, quieter, more spacious. And for the first time, there's no emotional signal telling them who to be. That can feel peaceful, but it can also feel unfamiliar, and unfamiliar often gets mislabeled as loneliness. Here's where people usually misunderstand themselves. They think, if I miss them, maybe they mattered more than I thought. But the real reason isn't about emotional attachment in the way we usually define it. It's about regulation. Your nervous system formed around a specific emotional cadence. Healing doesn't instantly reprogram that. It just removes the stimulus. So there's a gap. And in that gap, the body reaches for what it knows. Not because it was good, but because it was known. And here's where it gets more interesting. The missing often shows up after healing, not during the worst parts. When you were still inside the dynamic, survival took up all the space. There was no room to miss anything. It's only once safety returns that the system finally has the capacity to notice what's no longer there. That's why this feeling can come as a surprise. You think healing should feel like closure, but sometimes it feels like quiet, and quiet can feel unsettling to a system that learned to live in noise. This doesn't mean you want the relationship back. It means your identity is recalibrating. For a long time, part of who you were was shaped in response to someone else. Your emotional reactions, your vigilance, your self-expression. When that context disappears, the identity built around it loosens, and there's a brief, subtle sense of, who am I now? That question isn't painful, it's just unfamiliar. People who miss someone after healing often have a strong internal world. They feel deeply, they remember patterns, they don't emotionally erase experiences once they're over. So instead of clean emotional cutoffs, they experience gradual unwinding. The attachment dissolves in layers. First, the longing goes, then the emotional charge, then the identity imprint. What's left for a while is the echo, and echoes don't mean the sound is still happening, they mean it once did. This is why the missing can feel oddly neutral, not desperate, not romantic, just present. It might show up as a thought that passes through, or a moment of heaviness without a story attached. That's not regression, that's integration. The system is updating itself. Once you understand this, the feeling changes, not because it disappears, but because it no longer feels like a threat. You stop asking, what does this mean about me, and start recognizing it as a leftover rhythm fading out. It was never about wanting the person back, it was about your body releasing a pattern it no longer needs. And that awareness alone shifts how the experience lands. The missing doesn't define you, it doesn't undo your growth, it doesn't pull you backward. It simply marks the space where something once shaped you. Once you see that, you stop fighting the feeling, and when you stop fighting it, it passes through more gently. It was never random, it was a pattern, and now it's a pattern you understand.